In this tutorial, we'll look at the pipe operator. So, suppose that you have a piece of code which looks like this one. Here we have a standard rate, which is a double, and we call some API.getRate. We can imagine we have an API defined like this, so it has a method getRate, which returns a double, which calls some API and returns some value. So we have an API.getRate, and we are calculating a standard rate, which is the API.getRate times 2 minus the logarithm of the API.getRate. Now, what is the problem with this code? The problem with this code is we are calling the API 2 times. So first, if we are paying for the API, we pay double the price. If the call to an API takes time, it takes 2 times the time it takes. And because we are doing 2 calls to the API, the value may change in the meanwhile. Here it doesn't change because here it's just a mock API, but in practice it could change. So what is the correct way to write this? The correct way to write this is we store the rate in some variable like this, and now we say this is the rate times 2 minus the logarithm of the rate, like this. But in the meanwhile, notice that compared to the initial implementation, this is much longer. So now we have 4 lines instead of 1 line. Here it was quite compact, and now we have this spread over 4 lines. So there is a way to implement this in Scala, which is with the pipe operator, which apparently comes from F#. There are some blog posts on the internet describing that. You can search for it in Google, and the pipe operator allows us to do something like this. So we'll get rid of the double, which is automatically inferred, and we can say API.getRate piped. So we use the method pipe, and now we receive a function. It receives a function which gets the rate, and now we can say rate times 2 minus the logarithm of the rate. What is the final result of this piece of code? Is the rate times 2 minus the logarithm of the rate. But now it's all in this little expression. Okay, this is very useful. And now the API is only called once. So how do we define this? We define this with an implicit conversion. So the compiler, the pipe operator is not on the Scala standard library. We have to define it ourselves, and we can define it like this. So implicit class pipe parameterized with the type T. It extends any val to be more efficient, and we define the method pipe, which is parameterized with the type U, etc. So this implementation is available in several places in the internet, in blog posts and forum posts, etc. You can find it there, but it's as simple as this. So what happens here is the compiler will see API.getRate. What type is this? Is a double. Does the double have this method, vertical bar greater than the pipe method? No, it doesn't. So it will search for something which is an implicit conversion to convert this into something which has this method. So we need to have this pipe implicit class imported, okay? And it will find the pipe implicit class. It will convert this into the pipe, okay? The pipe is parameterized with something, okay? Which in this case, the type T is inferred to be a double because the API.getRate is a double. And now it calls the method pipe, which is here. It's parameterized with some type U. It's the result of this function. What is the result of this function? It's also a double, okay? And it receives this function, which receives the value, the original value, which is the rate. Here, it's the rate. And returns the type U, okay, which is a final result, which in this case, it's this one, okay? And it calls the function with the value. So it calls this function on the right-hand side with this API.getRate, okay, with the rate value, okay? And it returns the result of calling this function U, okay, which in this case is this double. And so the final result of the standard rate is is just this right times 2 minus the logarithm of the right. So if this were, for example, if we had this toString, okay, if we're returning a string instead of a double, this parameterization would be a string, and the final result would be a string, okay. And that's it. But now let's look at some piece of code which illustrates this even better. So imagine we have a method calculate which takes a list and then filters the list and maps the list and slices and filters and slices and filters, etc. So this piece of code is very nice and very easy to understand what it does and very simple to look at, etc. Okay. Now imagine we want to print the final result of the calculate. Okay. We now need to store it in a variable like this, and so we must have val result equals all of that, okay. And now we print the result, and now we return the result, okay. So now this was 9 lines, I think, and now it's 11 lines or something, okay. So now it's much bigger, harder to read, it takes more lines, and it's less clean than in the beginning, okay. So it's not so good, okay. And now imagine that we want to print an intermediate result, okay. Then it gets even worse. We have something like this. So we have to take the first result and then print the intermediate result and then say that the final result will be the intermediate result, filtered and sliced and filtered, and then we print the final result and then we return the final result, etc, etc, etc. Okay. Much more complex to read than cumbersome, okay. Now how can we do this with the pipe operator? So if we have the pipe operator defined, we can just say that in the end, for example, I want to pipe. Now here I get the result, okay, and I say I want to print the result, and in the end I want to return the result. That's it. It's just that. If I want to print an intermediate result, it's like that. It's as simple as this, okay. I don't need anything more. But this is useful, but now notice that I don't want to change the value, okay. So in the result, I don't want to change the value of the result. So I'm receiving a value and returning the same value. I don't want to make any change. So there is something which is kind of irrelevant here, is I don't want to change anything. So why should I have to receive the result? I just want to do the side effect. I just want to do the print, okay? Which could be any other thing, sent to an API or any other thing. But I just want to do the print, not anything more, okay? So we can define another operator. Let's imagine $, but just imagine the name you prefer, okay? Which ignores the result of this function, okay? So it just calls the function, the side effects happen, but it ignores the result and just returns the initial value, the initial value which was there before, okay? And the result of the function is ignored. So now if we are using the $, now we don't need this, so we don't need to return the result. We can just do the print, okay, and we can even call it like this with the underscore, okay, printing the value, and we can call it like this, okay. Now because this because this printing is a usual thing to do, we can define yet another operator. For example, we can use this symbol, which takes a label, let's imagine, which is a string, and just prints the label plus the value and returns the value, okay. And now we can say that we want to print an intermediate result and then the final result, okay. And that's as simple as this. Another thing in which the pipe operator is also good is that imagine that you want to, at this point you need to process for some reason the results up to here, okay. So you want to take the list and filter and map and slice, and then send this to some processor of this result, okay, and then continue filtering and slicing and filtering, okay. How do you do this normally? You say that I want to process the result of this, okay, and then on the result of that I continue filtering, slicing and filtering, etc. But notice that this process happens basically after I slice and then I continue to filter. So the natural place for this process to be, this is not the first thing to happen. This happens after the slice, okay? And then happens the filter, okay? So the natural place for this process to be is not here on the top, okay? It's here, but it doesn't work normally like that because I cannot have it there because it doesn't work, because it receives this as an argument. But with the pipe operator I can, okay? So I can have here results and then process the result, and then the result of all this will be the returned by the process, okay? So now I can have the process here, although it needs all of this as an argument, but that's no problem with the pipe operator, okay? And now you can see it clearly that the process happens after this slice and here, okay? So this is the pipe operator. I hope it was useful to you, and thank you.